What's up, dudes? Max here. So, had another unique opportunity over the past few days and a little while. We have some impressions of what is near the final build of Monster Hunter Wilds, and this is thanks to Capcom for setting up a preview event where we got the chance to play this. This also comes in tandem with some impressions recently, because we knew the beta was going to be happening, and I wanted to get my, overall takes of what went down in the beta, the latest one, and sort of compare that to what the final game is. I also just want to cover what I want to talk about in this, how weapons feel, how the environments feel, how the story feels, and also how the performance was. And as a reminder, this is the PlayStation 5 version, so I did get a couple of opportunities to record the the quote-unquote graphics mode and performance mode. There was not a PS5 Pro, so I'll try to do a little bit of that just to show you guys the differences, because there's good news there. There's actually extremely good news. So let's get into what is arguably the most important thing about Monster Hunter Wilds that the devs are presenting to us, and its story, or its campaign mode. And yeah, we've played a healthy amount of these between Iceborne, Monster Hunter World, between Rise and Sunbreak and stuff like that. Didn't do absolutely everything in Sunbreak, but we got a pretty good idea of how the story works in these games, and it kind of just gives you a little bit of guidance from point A to point B, introduce new monsters, big bad monster, yada yada yada. That is not all too different in Monster Hunter Wilds. However, the story experience, and I'm sort of reluctant to call it a story, because it's very I'd say bare bones is a story. It's setting up something, and it has characters, and these characters have objectives, but that has about as much story as the previous Monster Hunter games do. But in this case, they are working their butt off to sort of make this as easygoing for new players as possible. The way they're introducing mechanics, the way they're introducing new elements to the player, how frequently that stuff happens is at a very slow pace. And it's trying to get you familiar to all of Monster Hunter's systems, which is kind of surprising to me. They're really going for okay, there's going to be a whole bunch of new players that are playing this compared to World or Rise, and we're going to make this starting experience of their campaign really help ease those new players in and understand how everything works, because that is how it goes, man. And yeah, if you're somewhat experienced and have been playing these games since Monster Hunter Worlds, you kind of want things to sort of kick into gear. But I do appreciate some stuff that they do here, and it's a bit different than the previous games, where they try to handhold the player in this campaign through several different portions that are level-based. So it's okay, you get new abilities, you get new gear, you get new skills. Here's how you use that stuff. Here's how you utilize these things. They show you the button presses for all of this stuff going through it. You got a little bit of a taste of that, in the beta, single player campaign demo, but it really goes much further beyond that here. For an example, if you get to a new area and you have all this strife and bad weather and all this funky stuff is happening, and you eventually clear a big thing. I'm trying to remain relatively spoiler free with what happens, but you clear a big thing and a big fight is done, and all of a sudden pretty much the clouds go away and all of the bad weather goes away. At that point, the game shows you, okay, so here's how the environments are, how they go from, a lot of different weather effects and changes, live and active, and here's what it's like when it's nice and cool and pretty in daytime. And when it's pretty in daytime, there's a funny moment that has happened in two zones, where the hunter sort of goes on a quest with Alma, which is your quest giver, and you have to go to a place, right? And what you'll do is you'll sort of just survey the area, and it's a slow walk section where we're just gonna look and check out all the things that are here now. So check out this, look at this, let's walk around and talk about that. There's kind of these little vibes moments that happen with the environments that take you from point A to point B before you have to kick in the next hunt or move to the next area. But all things considered, we played the first 3 hours of the game. I do think that there is some really cool cinematic stuff that happens in this story mode, but the story itself is everything that they are setting up for it is kind of straightforward and very Monster Hunter-y, I think the extra effort that they're putting into probably, which feels like this is going to be a very girthy campaign, is felt, and it feels like this is going to be something that is going to go on for quite a while, and the way and rate they're introducing these monsters feels pretty paced out. So I like that. I think that's a good idea. But at times I'm kind of like, man, I wish I can just kick it into gear and go whoop some ass. You know what I mean? I guess that's just, you know, the Monster Hunter nature in me after playing these games for so long. But I do have to say, outside of like some story mode sequences have like sort of generic characters talking to each other, and it looks okay, kind of has like your in-game character model going on there with the other characters' in-game character models, but then it goes into cutscenes, and the cutscenes are just gorgeous, dude. Like the lighting on the cutscenes, the quality of the lighting, the environment lighting, like all that stuff put together is just absolutely beautiful. And there's some shots in here, granted I was playing it on like mostly graphics mode when I was doing the story mode, are just mind-blowing how good they look. Just absolutely mind-blowing. I'll use a couple of examples when they really get crazy with the lighting in some of these situations, but man, like if there's parts where I have had concerns because I might not have liked the way everything we've seen of Wild so far compared to World, just on like an artistic level, there are some moments in these cutscenes and these fights that are just absolutely gorgeous and really pioneering in terms of like visual fidelity, as far as what the RE engine can do, and running pretty damn well on a PS5. This build of the game, I can say, if we're going to talk about a performance mode situation to a graphics mode situation, dude, this was running night and day better than the last time I played this, which was around, I think, September-ish. It was around fall of last year. So that was a much different build of the game, and kind of what we're playing in the beta right now. So that's very good news. It does feel like the launch version of the game, at least on base PS5, is going to be a lot better than it was from those early impressions we saw a few months ago. So yeah, it was rough performance-wise before, and I think we should be pretty good now. But just comparing, so like here's an example of some of the footage we've been seeing already from the story modes in 30. Here's some hunts that kind of go down that are running in 60 in the proper performance mode. So you can get a decent idea of like, yeah, it has a little bit less visual, you know, acuity. It doesn't have all the super sharp edges of like a 4K image, but it's doing a pretty decent job, and it doesn't feel like it's like absurdly low like some other games in this generation might have been, much less the previous time we actually played this game or the beta, you know, in performance mode. So that's very good news. Other than that, I do think that the weapons, while not being able to have a ton of time to go through every single weapon, every single change, do feel quite good. So whatever minor differences have changed between hit stun values or things like that within the final like build or near final build of the game are absolutely felt, where things just feel good. Like landing hits, there were some problems early on in those early betas, the 3-month ago beta, where things just felt not weighty at all. And that does not feel like it's the case now. So all I can tell you is that it's hard to pinpoint every single nook and cranny and detail of what's going down with the combat, but the combat feels sound, it feels precise. Even some of the latest betas do feel like really good with how things are going right now. So yes, the final version of the game, I can sort of echo that. Feels good, man. I'm not concerned with the way weapons feel and how they're going to be balanced, but I didn't get the change. I did not get to adjust myself to like insect glaive because I don't know how that works. I wanted to see if the bounce, but all things considered, I kind of stuck with what works because we had such a limited period of time. Outside of that, it wouldn't be a Monster Hunter preview event without some multiplayer hunts. And yes, we did get to hunt a couple of monsters in multiplayer. And funny enough, I'll throw some footage of both of these fights that are up here. Some somewhat nondescript monsters that I really can't, you know, remember what they were outside of being relatively new and kind of gross enemies. Things that are very different outside of the traditional, like, Monster Hunter world style monsters, which are mostly like dragons. These are very different, and I do get the vibe overall for Monster Hunter Wilds that they're going for a different feel and different approach for the quote-unquote monsters of the game, and these hunts are kind of a good example of that. So obviously one's like a spider that's similar to some of the stuff we might have had in Monster Hunter Rise, and this one is a weird goop monster, and I don't even know what the hell to make of this thing, dude. It's the only thing I can tell you is from what we played so far, and this is like this might just be an experience thing, right? As somebody that has played a few of these games, and they're kind of like riding a bike to me, where I come back and I'm like, whoa, how the hell do I play Monster Hunter? But, you know, after having like 500 hours in Plus and World and hundreds in Rise, you come back and all of a sudden your hands just start adapting themselves to muscle memory from before, and things just start kicking in. So I will say the story mode's pretty breezy, and that's the whole point of low rank to high rank. I get it. But the story mode did feel relatively breezy. That you kind of just like cook through this thing and start wasting these monsters and making gear and all that kind of stuff, you know? But that can also be extended to the couple of hunts they gave us, because we were in a room of like mostly influencers and journalists that are just going to play this thing and give it a shot. And everyone's learning the new stuff in the game, and my god, dude, these monsters got absolutely wasted. Just wasted. And we sort of saw a similar thing kind of happening within the beta of, the latest beta of Monster Hunter Wilds, where once you get sort of familiar a little bit with these things and people know what to do with their weapons now and know how to utilize those weapons, and are using the sacred for recovery and all that kind of stuff, it's like, man, these monsters are getting wailed on. So I am very curious to see where that goes, because obviously, like I said, low rank to high rank, all that stuff's going to be really important in the future. But I'm very curious, like, where the difficulty spikes end up going down in Monster Hunter Wilds, because at least from like the three-ish hours of the hunts we had at the beginning of the game, it mostly felt like kind of like a breeze, like a sort of a walk in the park for people that are adapted already to the Monster Hunter experience. But the good news is that, like I said earlier, for anybody that's new to this stuff, this seems like interesting to you, or you missed out on World, I don't know how you did, but if you did, then this would absolutely be a wonderful jumping in point. And it feels like every single newer Monster Hunter game, that's kind of the goal from Capcom, to create a new jump in point. And more so than ever, there is bigger opportunities for that to be the case with Monster Hunter Wilds. Do have some criticisms, like, overall, but a very, very, very positive experience from the demo. And I do think I'm hoping for a lot more hunts later on that aren't in mostly like darkness. I think that's one of my biggest criticisms, is that a lot of the hunts that start are either in like bad weather or very dark areas. And because of that, I don't get to see like pretty stuff. And eventually things do open up to be like kind of pretty, but that was just the first opening area, like the Windward Plains, I think is what it's called. So that's my only big criticism, is that I kind of want, like, man, when I got into Wildspire Wastes or some of these other zones in Monster Hunter World, they were just gorgeous, man. They just looked really good on the first impression, but they're trying to impress you with all of the crazy weather tech at the beginning and how chaotic all the weather can be between flooding and sandstorms and things like that, which was present in the 3-hour demo. Anyway, thank you, dudes. I'll be back. Of course, Monster Hunter Wilds is right around the corner. We're going to be having some fun playing old school Monster Hunter games. Going to try to fire up the original Monster Hunter on PlayStation 2 with multiplayer, so that should be a fun experience, and that'll be making it into a video not too long from now. So if you want to stick around for that, as well as Monster Hunter Wilds, we'll have some of those fun compilation moments and stuff like that going up on the channel. Anyway, thanks a ton, dudes. I appreciate a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. My name is Max, and I'll see you guys next time.